Hey everybody, Jason Blaha here with Ice Cream Fitness. Just sitting here drinking my morning coffee, sitting in my robe looking sexy as hell. Hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot. Okay, today I've got a Q&A. Someone sent me a message asking me a question, and this can be a touchy subject, but I'm going to try to answer this question as maturely and intelligently as possible. The question was, do I feel that ethnicity, nationality, or racial background plays a role in um, genetics for bodybuilding or sports in general? And how do I explain some noted disparities, um, in different sports and things in terms of ethnic background? All right. To answer the first question, to be honest, I'm going to have to say no. Realistically, I don't think ethnic background plays as large of a role in terms of both bodybuilding genetics or capacity for various sports as much as a lot of people seem to think it does. I think it's been overhyped, overrated, and I think that cultural, socioeconomic factors and other things actually play a larger role in this, and I think that explains some of the disparities you see. And again, I think a lot of times this question, this comes up a lot at gyms and things when people are talking, and I've noticed it here in the UK. I've noticed it when I lived in Texas, training in the deep south, or even when I've gone up and trained with bodybuilders up in Michigan and things. People have these different stereotypes and views on this topic, and quite honestly, in a lot of ways, I think this topic can, again, due to ignorance, due to lack of understanding of the way gene flow and genetic diversity works in populations, I think it can lead to to racism, racist beliefs, and I think it can be used as an excuse for laziness or people's way to explain their own laziness, meaning because this person from this ethnic group is getting better results than me, so therefore it must be their genetics, instead of just saying, hey, maybe I'm lazy as fuck and I don't train as hard as I should. And I think that's I think that's part of the problem. Or you'll get people who then they don't get results because they decide that they're from some group that they think is genetically blessed to gain muscle, whether it's African American or Italian American, and they're Sicilian, or they think that they come from a German background and have some sort of super Aryan genetics, and then therefore they use that as some excuse to not train hard, and then they get piss poor results. So again, I think it's really this philosophy. I think it can be problematic in a number of ways. And so let me actually look at some of the issues with it. And first of all, when you look at everything from various Olympic sports, um, there are a few exceptions, but generally speaking, in most of your actual performance-related sports, you see a wide ethnic diversity among top champions competing for the top spot who are in the top 10 place. And I mean, there are people from some sports, when you look for power or speed or endurance, you see people from pretty much 8 or 10 different ethnic groups up there, all performing within 1% of each other. So, again, that right there should show you that to say that different groups are just inherently more or less gifted or blessed in athletic performance endeavors is just it's just flat wrong. I mean, you can just look at that and tell. Two, the same thing. I mean, you look at bodybuilding shows, you look at the people who've been in the Mr. Olympia lineup for the past 30 or 40 years. I mean, there's a wide diversity among top bodybuilders, and these are the top tenth of a percent of competitive bodybuilders in the world, and you see a wide genetic and ethnic and national diversity up there. So again, I mean, if you want to say that certain groups are more or less biased than others, based upon their ethnicity, then how do you explain that? So when we get into other things, let's really look at the individual factors and things I've seen. Okay, the biggest one that you see, particularly in the U.S., this one just I don't know. It's been a controversial topic, And it's this idea that people of African American descent, and I think, I don't remember who it was, some football coach had said something about this and got just flamed for it decades ago on the news. It said that because of slavery and selective breeding and things, that African Americans are just genetically more predisposed to athletic talent. And the fact of the matter is, in some ways, that while there might be a small degree of truth to that, in the sense of a slightly better gene pool for certain traits within that community, if you understand basic gene flow and gene diversity, you're going to realize that it wouldn't apply across the board. You can't make a blanketed statement like that. It's just ignorant. And two, in a lot of ways, it really, it's insulting and detracting to the athletes who busted their ass to get where they are, because it's basically saying that because of that event that maybe they didn't have to work as hard. And I think it's really insulting to them. And I think a better explanation for a lot of that is cultural and socioeconomic, because even if there's that slight tendency, and let's say there are, as a result of that, instead of only 1% of that population being really gifted athletically, let's say as a result of that 2 or even 3% of it are. But it's not going to increase the quality of the genes of those actually, we're lucky enough to get slightly better genetics for sports through there. It's not going to give them better ones than someone with the same amount of genetic ability from another group. It's just, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't improve what was there. It only slightly would increase um, the the amount within that population. It's not going to move it up another level. It doesn't work that way. Not in only a few hundred years. It's tens of thousands of years, okay, but a few hundred years is just not enough to affect that the gene flow, that enough to really be significant. So I mean, you're looking at a slight help, just a concentration of genes, not a complete set of mutations or anything here. There might be twice as many really gifted individuals per capita. And I think what you really see there is not so much that then they're suddenly more gifted. It's that when you look at wealth disparity within the U.S., I mean, there's wealth disparity. There's absolutely ethnically based wealth disparity, between Caucasians and African Americans in the U.S. And I think that plays a tremendous role, because what you see in there is that you still see a lot of, and it's getting better over time, but it hasn't been solved. You see, certain communities within the African American community, due to previous prejudice and racism, who are still kept down and, live in slums and ghettos. And for a lot of those individuals, growing up in that and wanting to escape that environment can be a powerful motivator. It can be an absolute powerful motivator to succeed. Find something that you can succeed at to get out of there. And I think some of those individuals, when they realize that they've got an athletic gift, they see that as their ticket to escape. Whereas in someone who has an athletic gift who's from a more privileged background, they're less likely to pursue it to the same extreme. They might, but they're going to treat it more as possibly a hobby. Whereas in some of these young men, they're seeing it as a means to escape a terrible environment and to get a better life. And so they're going to work twice as hard to get somewhere, to do something with it, to get that college scholarship. And when they get that scholarship, to actually try to make some money so they can improve their life and get some upward mobility. And I think honestly, the socioeconomic factor there, we're actually looking at that particular example, I think is tremendous. I think that is actually the driving cause of why you see some disparity there in sports in the U.S. I don't think it's actually genetic or racial at all. I think it's actually socioeconomic factors driving it to a large extent. And then again, that's only my opinion on the matter, but I think that's really what you see. And so again, I would rather people focus and look at it on that way than to try to take something away from these athletes who have just busted their ass to be where they are. I think if you go the other route, it's just not fair to those athletes, and I think it's insulting to them. then we look at other things, and then people use these excuses of saying, well, my group has historically not done well, whether they try to claim they're Indians or Asians or whatever, and therefore they're not capable of gaining muscle. But I mean, I've seen firsthand examples of drug-free bodybuilders from both of those groups who just had tremendous, powerful physiques. I mean, and so, I mean, I just don't buy that excuse. I mean, I've just seen too many real-world examples. I mean, give you a perfect example. I mean, I had a friend I knew, a guy named Mike, and I think he was like half Chinese and um, half Filipino, and he was a lifetime drug-free bodybuilder, and he was just aesthetic with a tiny waist. He had 18-inch arms at a fairly low body fat, and I mean, I spotted him on a bench press, and I mean, I remember him repping out 365, weighing only about 200 pounds for 5 reps on the bench press. And I mean, to me, if someone doesn't have good genetics for bodybuilding, how in the hell are they going to have a bench press like that or 18-inch arms while maintaining great aesthetics, drug free, if they don't have great genetics? So, you know, you can't use that as an excuse. And the same thing, I've known a couple of guys of like Indian descent who have had similar results. So, I mean, again, when people try to point out that these individual ethnic groups don't have it as well, then how do you explain these individuals other than clearly there are genetically gifted individuals in every group? And I think that if for some reason you shortchange yourself and say, hey, I don't have great genetics for bodybuilding, then you're creating a negative roadblock for yourself, and you're going to have a self-fulfilling prophecy. Um, and you can't even worry about comparing yourself to someone else who just happens to be more genetically gifted than you. You know, you have to worry about yourself and compete against yourself. Do the best that you can do, and you know, and don't shortchange yourself and set yourself up for failure, and you're going to get a lot better results. So again, I think people use that as an excuse for laziness, or to justify their own laziness, and if they just busted their ass, they would still achieve something regardless of what they think their personal genetic limits are. I don't know. This can be a frustrating topic, and in all honesty, it's not going to go away, because the way human nature is with things like in-group, out-group bias, and just basic social psychology, I think we're going to continue to see this in the future. But in all honesty, I think if this set of prejudices and ideas just completely went away in the world of bodybuilding, I think that it would actually be better for everyone. Because again, I think this entire topic, as a general rule, causes far more negativity than it brings anything positive to the fitness community, to the bodybuilding community. And really, I mean, if I could have it my way, I'd like to see the whole topic just go away. It's just my take on the matter. I mean, hopefully it's been informative, and hopefully some of you learned something. And I don't know, all I have to say on that is fuck racism and bigotry. Don't be ignorant and stupid. And just do the best you can with what you have, and not worry about what you think someone else has been gifted with that you haven't. Focus on yourself, and focus on doing what you have to do to make the most out of yourself. So let me give you guys another bicep shot, and I'll talk to you next time.